And we're live. So you'll notice this setting is slightly different than my previous videos. But this is the living room. And today I want to talk about Meditations, which is a book that I read recently. I started it back in June of this year. So I gradually read this book a little couple pages every day, skip some days, but I finally finished it. So it took me about 6 months to read. It's about one of the great Roman emperors, Marcus Aurelius. It's written by him, better said, and so I think this curtain here goes with the theme of the Roman Empire. But this book is really interesting. I want to share some things about it. Now, one of the things that I learned was that Meditations was written by Marcus Aurelius, somewhat like a journal, a personal journal, or a almost like a not a diary, but something similar. They're just his notes. So it was never meant to be distributed by publishing companies, and it was just something that he was writing down of the Stoic philosophy. And so he was a student, Marcus Aurelius was a student of the Stoics. Uh, he was born into somewhat of a royal family, but the way that he became emperor of Rome eventually was through adoption. One of the emperors at the time said saw some qualities in Marcus Aurelius at a very young age that he thought would be great for him to be an emperor one day, but he was too young. So that emperor went to another gentleman and said, I'll make you emperor after me if you adopt Marcus Aurelius, so that when your time is done, Marcus Aurelius could be emperor. And that's exactly what happened. And so we're talking 121 to 180 AD. So 120 years after Jesus was around, just to give you somewhat of a perspective. Now I want to get into the book. So there's a few themes that were very common within the book. One of them was discipline. So if you're familiar with the Stoics, you understand it's a life of discipline. It's a life of self-control. Well, Marcus Aurelius talks a lot about that in the book. It's a life of controlling your emotions. One of the anecdotes, one of the phrases that he had in here that I thought was really powerful was that no matter how much you praise a flower, that flower remains unchanged. No matter how beautiful, no matter what you tell that flower, the flower itself doesn't change. And so he was an emperor, and Marcus Aurelius had the empire calling him somewhat of a god and a savior, and everybody was telling him that he was amazing and he was doing great things. And so he was faced with this almost godlike treatment. So he had to say, hey, I'm human, I'm mortal. And that's another theme that's very common in the book, is that he talks a lot about death, to not fear it, that it's just natural. Another thing that I thought was really interesting is that he talks about the universe, or the logos. And so it explains somewhat what the logos is. It's a Latin word, I believe. But basically it's everything that is. It's the universe. And so he talks about the nature and the laws of nature. The laws of the universe, excuse me. And that everything that happens in your life, is right. That's one of the things that I thought was really powerful in this book. And so as I'm reading this book, I began to apply it to my life and situations that were challenging in my life. Um, and it was somewhat of a shoulder to lean on, let's say, when I could read this and see that, you know what, things will be okay, and that everything that is happening right now, though it's challenging, is right. Now, I wasn't faced with, let's say, health concerns or death or anything like that within my family, thank God. These were situations through the workplace, the business that I was coming across. And one in particular was one of my goals to purchase an apartment, a fourplex, and it became very, very difficult, the negotiations that I was doing myself, and I was ready to walk away. And in that very stressful time, I was actually staying up at night, and I was losing sleep over it. I was reading through the book, and it helped me handle that, you know what, if it's not meant to be, you took it up to the point that you can, and you can walk away. So I was applying it to my daily life. And even though it took me 6 months to finish this book, almost 6 months, um, the way that I was reading through it was kind of like a daily, just a daily dose, kind of like a supplement or a medication or something that you take every day to help you get through and thrive in life, right? And so that's the way I was processing it. And then I go and I would read it to relatives or family members, or, you know, my wife, or, and I would share with them the part that I had read. And I like to personally write in my books and note them down. So, I mean, I'm just opening up the page to just a random part of the book, and this is one of the things that stands out. And no matter where you open the book, you can find a phrase like this, similar. It says, "So other people hurt me? Question mark. That's their problem. Their character and actions are not mine. What is done to me is ordained by nature. What I do by my own." And so a lot of it had to do with that. And excuse me, a lot of it had to do with other people and things happening to you and things that were happening to him. And Marcus was trying to figure out how to handle them. But what's crazy about this is that this book that was, well, these notes that he wrote when he was around, which was 121 to 180 AD, you know, close to 2,000 years ago. What's so interesting is that these situations apply to today. And so, you know, when things happen to you, it's easy to say, you know, I was the cause of something, or it should have gone differently, but when you just look at things that are happening, everything that happens is right, and it's nature, and it's the cycle. And if something bad is happening, that's one thing that was very interesting, that his approach, and there's some things that I don't agree with in it, but one of the things was that he says at the beginning of the notes, it says that nothing is good or bad, it just is. Nothing is good or bad, it just is. So here's another one that I came across. It's page 60 of this one, of this book, and this one's by, it's Meditations, Marcus Aurelius, and this is the version by Gregory Hayes. And this one says, "Nothing happens to anyone that he can't endure. The same thing happens to other people, and they weather it unharmed, out of sheer obliviousness, or because they want to display quote-unquote character. Is wisdom really so much weaker than ignorance or vanity? Nothing happens to anyone that he can't endure. And again, that goes into like everything that happens is right and it's as nature intended it to be. Um, give yourself a gift. Here's another anecdote. Give yourself a gift, the present moment. People out of posthumous fame forget that the generations to come will be the same annoying people they know now, and just as mortal. What does it matter to you if they say X about you or think Y? Give yourself a gift, the present moment. It's powerful stuff because here he talks about the same annoying people will be there in the down the road and they are just as mortal. And so when he talks about mortality and he talks about that at the end of the day nothing really matters because whatever people think about you, one day you'll be gone and the people who thought those things will be gone and everyone will be forgotten. He talks a lot about that. Another thing that's very interesting, he talks about everyone will be forgotten, the praised and the praiser. So the person that was mourned and the one that was mourning for them, everybody will go. And so it talks about doing the best and being genuine and being honest and living a good life. And he says, if at the end of your days, let's say the curtain gets pulled on you early, quote unquote, and you only got to do 3 acts of your performance. So whatever age that is that the curtain falls and it's your time to go. When that occurs, did you live a life where everyone who thinks about you thinks you were a good person? And if the answer is yes, then you lived a good life. Handling difficult situations. He's running an empire. He is he has all the power in the world. So when you have all the power in the world, you're faced with lots of temptations. And so another thing that he talks about, like I mentioned, is discipline. So living a life of discipline where when you have access to whatever it is you want, whether it's the alcohol or gambling or whatever it is, whatever desires, being able to control those. And that's one of the things that Marcus Aurelius pushes in this book, Meditations, is that you're a better man, you're a better person if you can control your desires. Let's read another part here for you guys. This one was interesting. I wrote this note down. It says, do less is better, and you have more tranquility. Does anything genuinely beautiful need supplementing? So he's talking about, he says, praise is extraneous. The object of praise remains what it was, no better and no worse. This applies, I think, to even quote-unquote beautiful things. In ordinary life, physical objects, artworks, when you praise someone or you praise something, it doesn't affect that thing or person. It doesn't make it better or worse, no matter how much you're praised. Does anything genuinely beautiful need supplementing? And he says no more than justice does, or truth, or kindness, or humility. That's one quote that I heard not too long ago. I don't remember who it's from, but the quote was that the truth is like a lion. No one needs to defend it. So, does anything beautiful need supplementing? No more than justice does, or truth, or kindness, or humility. Are any of those improved by being praised? The answer is no. Or damaged by contempt? Is an emerald suddenly flawed if no one admires it? Or gold or ivory or purple, knives, flowers, bushes? So that's one thing that I've noticed, and I've always been into psychology and people, studying people, and people do change by being praised. And I think what Marcus Aurelius is touching on is that we need to realize that the praise doesn't make you any better or any different or any worse. Remember, there is no good or bad. There just is, again, according to Marcus Aurelius. And I think subscribing to some of these things, especially in difficult or adversity, when you're coming across adversity or challenges, I think subscribing to this philosophy, the Stoic philosophy, and that of Marcus Aurelius, I think is really beneficial. It has been to me because you're in more control of the situation. You realize that some things are out of your control, and those are the things that nature intends to be a certain way. You have no control of those. But the things you can control, like self control and discipline, your desires, how you want to live your life, being honest. Being honest costs you nothing. And so, why not be honest, right? Um, no, very little talk about physical things. Um, he talks about one of the I recommend it. Okay, one of the really interesting phrases that he says was that us people, our community, we are like the top row of teeth in your mouth and the bottom row of teeth. We need each other. And that was really powerful to me because sometimes we think that we can get through life just looking out for ourselves. But the reality is that to get ahead, we all need each other, like a top row of teeth and the bottom row of teeth. So it's about not just being a good person, but also helping each other. Another thing that was really powerful was he says that we need to be like a rock thrown up in the air. That when that rock is going up and when that rock comes back down, the rock remains unchanged. When we're up in life, and if we get humbled and we come back down, we remain unchanged. And that's something that's got to be extremely difficult to do, especially as you're going up. But I'm sure as you're coming down, but as you're going up, everyone is saying you're doing so great, you're doing good. You know, everybody all of a sudden is flocking towards you and believes in you. And so it's got to be difficult to not change and think that you actually, are the greatest, right? And that's one of the things that I think if we can live a life where we don't allow the external praises or the negative things affect us, we're a lot more in control and we're able to block out that noise and just do what we do, be genuine, help people. I'm going to butcher this one, but there was another one that was interesting that he talked about. He says that when someone is genuine, they're like a someone who hasn't showered or stinks. Everybody in the room can smell them. And to me, that means that. Oh, here it is. So it's page 151. It says a straightforward, honest person should be like someone who stinks. When you're in the same room with him, you know it. But false straightforwardness is like a knife in the back. So when someone is straightforward, everyone can smell them. And I think that's so true. You can tell when someone is being genuine. You can tell when someone's being fake. There's a lot more. I mean, I could just keep picking through some of these, but I just wanted to leave you with some of the most impactful ones to me that kind of came off the top right now. But again, the main general themes are. Well, one of the things I didn't talk too much about was death. He talks about death. That Okay, I just opened a page that I think is really good right here, and I'll get back to the topic of death. This is page 37. It says, our inward power, when it obeys nature, reacts to events by accommodating itself to what it faces, to what is possible. It needs no specific material. It pursues its own aims as circumstances allow. It turns obstacles into fuel. As fire overwhelms what would have quenched a lamp, water, what's thrown on top of the conflagration is absorbed, consumed by it, and makes it burn still higher. So when I see that phrase, that sentence, that paragraph, our inward power when it obeys nature, to me that means like someone who is in line with what the universe, what nature has put your purpose. And so it reacts to any event by accommodating itself to what it faces. So no matter what's thrown their way, it will figure out a way to handle it. But it turns obstacles into fuel. Like a fire overwhelms what would have quenched a lamp. Like a fire can jump over water, or, just consume whatever's in its way. And then it says no random actions, none not based on underlying principles. So living a life of principle. Choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been. There's just simple things to live by, right? Simple. But Marcus Aurelius was a student of many, many other Stoics and many, many other people. And so this is like a computation of all of the things, the journal that he wants to live by. He probably was opening it up constantly and reminding himself. This is a book that I'll constantly have on me, and I'll remind myself some of these things. It talks about reputation. Is it your reputation that's bothering you? But look how soon we're all forgotten. The abyss of endless time that swallows it all. So that's such an interesting one, because I've always thought reputation is so important in the business world, in any world. It's so important to have a good reputation and preserve it and build it up. And he's saying don't give so much importance to it. It's all forgotten. It doesn't mean don't do good. He's saying do good, but don't give so much importance to reputation. So a lot of my ways of thinking previously have been challenged by this book. And again, there's some things that I don't agree with. But, you got to take the good from it, and then the rest you can discard, right? But you can process what you think is good. going back to the topic of death that he talks a lot about, um, that we're all mortal, that um, it's nature to that we entered with ease and we should leave with ease. And so he says, don't fear it, don't fight it. There should be a calmness to it. He talks a lot about like sickness also. He says that um, when one is in pain or sick, don't complain, for the pain will end when you end. It won't last forever. It's just trying to like, I think most of what he's talking about is just a mindset. Don't continue to live your life. Don't complain. And I mean, I can't speak on that, right? But what I can share is what he's talking about. He's saying to don't make that your existence. Understand that that's there. It just is. Sickness just is. And again, nothing is good or bad. So it's some of that stuff is a little hard to like for me to really understand, right? When you're saying sickness or death is not good or bad. But when he's saying don't fear death, don't fear these things, that they have to happen, and it's the cycle, and it's as nature intended us to be. We're not immortal. So live your life to the best every single day. Live a life of purpose, of discipline. Do good to other people. Be genuine. These are the main principles that Marcus Aurelius talks about in Meditations. And so again, I'm here with my Roman cloth and in the background, and again, not a formal setting at all, but I just wanted to share with you because I just recently finished this book, and a lot of these thoughts were on my mind just right off the top. And so I hope this encourages you to open the book. And if you do, I would love to, or if you've read it, I would love to hear what you think about it. Thanks for sitting down and having a glass of coffee with me.